Welcome, everyone. I'm Greg Schnell, the Canadian technician, here to host the Market Buzz. This show looks at weekly setups across the U.S. market. Using the tools available on StockCharts, we'll look for long time frame trades. Please subscribe to my articles and Twitter feed to get more information intra-week. So we have ourselves a funny situation in the market, a serious situation in the market, and some big opportunities. We have a company called CanTrust, who you can't trust, has been breaking down hard, and we'll show that stock briefly. But anyway, it's just surprising that they would use such a name and then end up in such a pickle. So we're going to cover that one off. That's a marijuana name. And then I want to talk briefly about the indexes busting through 3,000 and 27,000. So those numbers are big and round. Looking forward to that. I'm a little bit concerned that kind of lost our mojo on the Russell. We've been going sideways for 2 weeks, but we'll just keep our eye focused there and just see if there's anything going on under the hood. And then today on Wednesday's show, what we covered off was using the SCTR to find stocks in a range using the scooter ranking. And I was on Market Watchers Live yesterday with Arthur Hill and Tom Boley, and we talked about some of the benefits of being a member of StockCharts, and we went through how we use different tools. And one of the things that came up was that with the free membership, you can only see the top 10 scooter rankings. And I think some of the more powerful areas in the scooter ranking are a little farther down. They're between moving across the 25 level, so going from the bottom quartile into the middle and going from the middle quartile up into the top quartile. Those two breaks seem to be important to me, and quite frankly, the charts show lots of improvement around those areas. So I like to go look at those. And so today we're going to cover off a simple scan that gives you some opportunities to find that, and hopefully you'll be able to use those. So on days when, in general, everything is up and hasn't, I don't know that I turned this off, so let me just do that now. In days that we have the market just gently climbing higher and you're looking for opportunities, this might give you a different way to go. So we're going to do that. Okay, so I'm going to jump in first of all and just look at the gallery of the S&P 500 here, and I can add a comma and I can put in $NDX. Now this shrinks the screen a little bit because to get them both to fit. So one of the things I just want to make sure of is that they're moving in tandem. And if we put up the Russell just to show the difference, the problem we're having here is this Russell's just grinding sideways, whereas this is still upsloping. So we want to see this improve. Now it could, break out of this downtrend or sideways range here. Wouldn't take much, but we still want to watch. Now we've got a PPO just grinding around zero on this one, and over here we've got, up in positive territory. So that this one looks way better to me. Moving down through the different views here, this is the daily view. And because I put indexes in here, not ETFs, there is no scooter. So if I change this to SPY and either IWM for the Russell or for the NDX for the NASDAQ, but we'll go with IWM just because it's more different. The chart shape is a little different. What did I do? I probably didn't hit go. There we go. Nope, I did something wrong. Let me check here. Can't type or something. Yeah. Okay. So when we get to the daily view, now you can see, so again, we changed it from index to an ETF, and an ETF has a scooter ranking, whereas an index does not. And so those are two important distinctions. So if you want to see a scooter ranking for the SPY, it typically hovers around 75, and we can see that down on the chart below here, where it outperforms over a 3 or 4 year period here. This thing just hovers around 75. So in order for a portfolio manager to beat the index, it's important that they also beat the SPY. And the reason is because they're probably going to calculate, and as a self-investor, you should calculate it as well. Are you outperforming the index, including dividends, because when you invest on your own, you're including dividends. And so you need to compare apples to apples. So you want to compare against the SPY. And the reason that this line has a slight slope over 4 years is because that's the difference of including a dividend. And so you'll see that the SPX, if I do a ratio of SPX to SPY like we have here, that's why the SPY outperforms. And because it's the first name here on the page, it outperforms the index. Now, looking at the Russell, you can see it's all over the map, but lately it's been stuck in the bottom 50% for almost a year now. Since the September meltdown, the Russell hasn't really been able to get a heartbeat. And what we want to watch for here, again, the Russell can be a good indicator of weakness. And so if the Russell can't start to get some moxie, we probably have to start thinking a little more cautiously. But normally what would happen when a market starts to correct, so let's just say that this earnings period coming up is crap and we have lots of stocks getting sold off as they announce earnings and everything starts to roll over. Even then, we would probably still have a secondary rally after that, and that secondary rally is when the market would thin out. So we'd have a lot of sectors that don't rally, and we only have a few that kind of continue to go on. Right now, we have lots of sectors breaking out to new highs, and so it's difficult to imagine that we're going to have a hard collapse here with this backdrop. Now, that doesn't mean it can't happen, but for the most part, with everything going on, all of the issues that we seem to be facing around trade, unemployment is very good, but we also have, different areas of the market that are struggling, like commodities. So what does that say about underlying demand? We had recent earnings from Fastenal that were weak. So we seem to have a lot of headwinds, but yet the market's working their way through them. So until the market struggles with that, I think we want to be more in tune with individual stocks breaking out and still trying to ride those rallies. So that's kind of why we're going to focus today. But the one point I wanted to show specifically was, if you notice how the scooter ranking for the SPY is up around here and the IWM is down here below 50 typically, you can understand why the small caps are a more difficult area of the market to invest in, because they're not outperforming as well. Okay, going to the weekly charts again, the SPY clearly hitting new highs here, and the Russell, we needed to get through 160.54, or the IWM, just to get through this year's highs, not even last year's September high. So when we see this lagging, that's important. And one of the areas that makes me a little bit concerned is this flat Russell here, right at zero. And if it was to roll over, that would bother me a lot more. What happened back, even let's take September. September, the market was heading higher, and then all of a sudden, literally had a noticeable drop off. And if we look at the Russell, it was sitting up here too. Nothing really gripping about that particular point, but we still had a couple of weeks before the market fell apart really hard. So keep watching it here. I don't like flat momentum on the Russell. And then just looking at a P&F chart quickly, we could just see that this is clearly outperforming this side, and that's why most people are leaning into the large cap stocks. Let's jump into the scan. And again, what I want to talk about is on a scooter ranking. Let's go back to that page just quickly. On the scooter ranking, what we want to watch for is this IWM. You could see when it's really underperforming and then it starts to take off. We want to try and find that sort of thing where the scooter ranking is low and starting to take off, or over here where the scooter ranking was low and starts to go above 75. We want to find where that happens in a week, so it has a relatively quick surge and we can get on board. So with that, a couple of things. Anything in color on the scan engine, by the way, is something it's going to act on. So if I use 2 forward slashes to take this out, now it's gone into gray mode, and that means that the editor, the scan processor, will not process that line. So I've got type is equal to stock. We're only going to look at the US. And if you wanted Canada in here, you would just change this to the word Canada. And then we want to look for very strong stocks. And what we're looking for is that the scooter was below 60 and now it's moved up above 75. So the daily scooter is above 75, and 5 days ago, the SCTR ranking was less than 60. And then we're going to come back and we're going to run this scan again, moving through a different zone, and I'll cover that off in a minute. Setting up the volume, you just want to make sure if you want to have a volume filter, because we could also get ETFs out of this scan if we wanted to, then we might have lighter volumes. But in this case, we've asked for stock. So we could change this from 60,000 to whatever, 100,000, 200,000. And some people like to play small cap, some people don't. We're going to bring them all in here with a price, just has to be greater than $2, so we get rid of lots of the junk. And the other thing about the scooter ranking, it typically doesn't have a lot of low price stocks, so it should be okay. So we're going to run the scan now. And when we run that, it gives us 19 stocks to look at. And again, this is just from today. And so what we want to cover off with this is we want to put them in a chart list. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to replace an existing chart list with these results. And so we're going to pick Martin. And we're going to dump them in here. And what is Martin? Martin is just a different name of a chart list that I can drop things into. And if I ever want to save it, move it out of there, because anything I have in a scanning chart list, I should be able to overlay and throw new things in and not be disturbed that I lost it. So the idea behind a scanning chart list is to just keep it very flexible. Okay, so now we have a stock here. I particularly want to focus a little bit more just on weekly charts again for the show. So we're going to put up a weekly chart, and I can change size here, zoom that out. And then the last thing I want to do is I want to set up every chart on the in the chart list to have this style. Now with that, what you can see here is, again, we're looking for stocks moving from below 60 to 75 on the scooter ranking. You could do the same thing from 20 to 50, whatever you like, but you can find some sort of range that you want to move from to and look at. This chart's particularly attractive from a couple of perspectives. The PPO is bouncing off zero. This is nice, but really it's been flat for 4 years. So nothing too interesting there. Now I'm going to click on view all so we can obviously just quickly roll through the charts. But this one's really starting to pump up, and you can see scooter ranking just moved above 75. Hasn't spent much time up there in the last 5 years. So that gives me a bit of pause, and I'm not sure I'd jump on it after a move that it's had already this big. I want something that's probably, I'll show you what I'm looking for, but I'm looking for stocks that have a history of being up here and are just resuming the trend. So this one, like Anthem, I particularly like. I like the fact that there's a downslope on the PPO here, and you know we're bouncing off zero and starting to turn up. So it's consolidated for roughly a year, and now we're going to start to turn up. So this looks pretty interesting to me. Atlantic Power, that's the one we just talked about. And if I don't like something, you can just hit the garbage can up here. But here's the Brent Oil Fund, and you can just see that it's downslope here, trying to break through. PPO right around zero. Volume's been starting to hit it in the last couple of weeks. That's nice. Scooter ranking was weak, and you can see this is pretty jaggable, and it starts to run. It can be very good. Craft Brewers, not sure that this one's going to have enough momentum for me. You can see the scooter ranking typically stays below 75, so that's not one I'm really interested in. CBOE, I love this one. Nice big base built here over a 2-year period, just starting to break out. And I've covered off the NASDAQ breaking out, ICE breaking out, TMX breaking out. So lots of different exchanges are breaking out. Okay, just continuing on here for a couple more minutes, and then we're going to cut to a commercial. But what I want to show you on this one is on this chart here, as you can see, we've ground sideways really all year and haven't really moved. Now, if this thing can start to kick up, they obviously have some sort of biotechnology stuff getting in the range, and it looks like the momentum's just starting to get back above zero. So I like stuff like this. And for some reason, it's all of a sudden perking up. Helen of Troy, this one started to move nicely. You could just see PPO above zero, turning back up again. Lots of volume hitting the stock as it tries to break out. Love that. Nothing wrong with that. Health Equity, again, continuing to push up through here. And we don't have to go through them all, but I'm going to merge the other stocks on top rather than change the chart list. So with that, I'm going to cut to a commercial break, come back, and we're going to run the scan on weaker stocks and then have both in the chart list to compare.
Today's market volatility provides savvy traders and active investors with an abundance of profitable opportunities. At the Traders Expo Chicago, July 21st through 23rd, dozens of the most respected traders in the world, including Rick Santelli, John Najarian, Tom Sosnoff, Linda Raschke, and Ralph Atkampora, will explain how they're adapting their strategies and share the specific trading opportunities they've identified in equities, commodities, forex, futures, and cryptocurrencies. Claim your free pass to join them at chicagotradersexpo.com.
Okay, and we're back. And what we want to talk about now, so before we covered scooter rankings moving from, they were below 60, moving above 75. Now we want to take the exact opposite of that and go and find stocks that were below 20, so they were in the worst quadrant, and are quickly moving up. And all of a sudden, some reason is taking them out of the basement and into at least becoming an average stock. Now, the question is that good enough? I'll show you the chart patterns and you'll see, you can see if you'd like it. So we just want to check our syntax, make sure I haven't done anything wonky. And we're going to run the scan. So now we get our scan results here. And we have 18 in this. Tower Hill showed up on both lists. And the reason is it went all the way to 97 from nothing. And once we merge it in, so one of our choices here is to merge results into an existing chart list. So that's what we're going to do rather than replace. So when we do this, we put the other ones into my chart list called Scanning Martin, and we're going to add it in there. So now we should have a mix of charts, right? We have some that should be on weeklies like this, but if we went to 10 per day, or sorry, 10 per view, we also have dailies in here. And the reason is because I set the chart list style before I added this other data. Now that I've added the other data, it goes in with whatever my default is. And so once again, we just need to go back and work with the chart. Well, whatever, we can just grab this one. So we've got this stock here. We're going to just go grab my weekly and now go down here, and it doesn't hurt to apply style to all because it's going to hit all of the stocks at the same time. But what I want to show you here is I've got two different scooter rankings, some low and oversold trying to break out, and some that are middle of the pack starting to break to the upside. So now let's compare those as we run through. And again, we've only got 30 charts or 40 charts here, so this is pretty brief. But the idea being just to see the difference in style. And so this one to me doesn't look like it's established yet. This chart, quite frankly, is going sideways for 3-4 years. I don't really need to play that, so I'm just going to hit the garbage can at the top. And now we've got AAR Corp. And again, this one really soared this week. It's moved up a lot with huge volume. If you got some sort of a pullback, perhaps there's a good reason to to try and buy the stock here. But right now, I don't think I can buy it after it's already had a, $5 move or something this week. Here's Anthem. Again, we talked about this one breaking out. PPO moving above zero. Scooter ranking going above 75. Looks like it's going to go to new highs. And there's been a lot of nice moves in healthcare stocks. McKesson is starting to move. I think Baxter's very close to a breakout. Again, lots of good names out there. Atlantic Power, we covered this one off earlier, but you can see the bounce off zero starting to turn up. Full stochastic moving above 50, and again, the scooter above 75. And here's Brent Oil, that one we covered off. Craft Brewers, CBOE, this one, again, this base was very, very nice. But here's Municipal Bond Fund. I don't think we want that. The scooter ranking was very deep and started to spike back up. It could be more to do with what happened a while ago. So in this case, it doesn't look to me like it's a chart that we want to stay with. Here's corn. And again, corn's been struggling price-wise for years, but the big difference is now we had so much rain in the spring that a lot of corn crops didn't get planted. And so by the fall, we could end up with quite a shortage of corn. So while this chart normally wouldn't appeal to anybody, this sudden thrust here is starting to get interesting, and any sort of a move out of here, perhaps we could see some upside. DB Energy, that I think one of the things that comes through on a lot of these charts all of a sudden is some of the energy ones are starting to move from deep down to higher up here, and making a higher low. So this is pretty nice, and you can start to see these turn up. And I'm just trying to show you the different styles. Some people are value investors, some people like to buy breakout highs. You get to pick which way you want to do it. Indonesia, this one is just trying to get through prior highs here, up around $27, so that's all right. PPO right around 0, and you can see the scooter ranking was deep and is starting to move back up. Nothing wrong with that moving to a new high. This one's a very tasty chart. And one of the reasons I like it is the PPO setting up so close to 0 and now looks like it's ready to resume its rush. We could see it tested its prior low, it held, and now it's moving above both the 10-week and the 40-week moving average. Scooter ranking accelerating above 75, so this is a nice chart. Global Commodity Index Trust, same thing here. Scooter ranking all of a sudden surging. And as we get this surge here, the 10-week and 40-week are being crossed. So that's one of the reasons that this calculation starts to go. But again, nothing wrong with picking up a stock moving above both the 10-week and the 40-week. That's very helpful. And your PPO is starting to turn up here right near 0. That's pretty tasty. And you've got a downtrend line here to work with. So lots of reasons to start to look to this for an entry. Helen of Troy I covered. Health Equity, so this one is moving back above 75, and you can see the downslope here. Same thing on the PPO. I like this coming down, breaking a year-long trend if this starts to move. And look at the volume showing up for work this week. Best in 5 years. Something's going on the stock, and it hasn't broken out yet. So that one really looks nice. And again, it's in software space. Somebody's very interested there. So that one's really got interest. Here's Humana showing up from deeply oversold down here for 4 or 5 months. All of a sudden starts to move to the upside. And again, another healthcare name going above the 40-week moving average. So that causes the scooter ranking to move quickly. It's breaking its downtrend in momentum. Lots to like about this particular chart. Imperial Oil, this is a Canadian oil company. It's just been smothered down here for the last 5 years. Again, it's starting to turn up. They have new volume coming on this year. But again, the chart's not that inspiring just because of its history. So I would probably just avoid it or delete it. Here's Vital Therapies. After the big move down, this is trying to build a base, but you can see some volume in the last 3 weeks starting to hit the stock. So something must be going on here. And if you've ever read the book, Nicholas Darvos, he used to look for huge accelerating volume, and then so he'd see this big volume spike and then the market pull back, and then he'd wait. And as the market started to break after these big kind of initial surge, then he'd get on board. And it was something like how I made $2 million while traveling the world or something. It's on my bookshelf. I'm just trying to remember the exact name of the book. Anyway, interesting to look for that sudden surge, the calm, and then the next storm starts. That's that kind of trade. Global Energy ETF, again, you're seeing a couple of themes here, healthcare and global energy all starting to tick up. Big downtrend going on for 2 years, right near 0, wants to start to take off. Who knows? That could be the Strait of Hormuz issues that we're starting to see. Cadman Holdings, this one's nice. Big downtrend here. Obviously, you want to see it going, but it's some sort of an IPO a few years back. It's in biotechnology. Maybe they got something working in their science and all of a sudden it's ready to pop, but this one's starting to shape nicely. Okay. Going to go a little bit faster. Maxar Technologies, this one really fell out of bed. This was a $50 stock, went to $5, and now it's starting to work its way higher. If you like to play that kind of trade, there's probably some room to the upside. Micron, lots of the semiconductors are having a good week this week. So looking forward to that whole group resuming an uptrend. That would be very helpful. And I think this Micron look here is pretty positive. Optinos, again, drilling in the bottom corner, trying to turn up with a higher low. This one's in pharmaceuticals. Not a bad looking chart. Volume's about average so far. Would like to see a little more aggression on that, but I like the way it's tested its base and trying to turn. So something there, and again, an IPO. So you do want them to base, and then when they start to run, they can be big. I think it was Investors Business Daily who mentioned an 8-year. Most stocks make their biggest moves within 8 years of their IPO. So that's an interesting stat. Petro Brasileiro tried to break out to new all-time highs here, or not all-time highs, but 3 or 4 year highs. Really nice positioning, again, fitting in with that global commodity theme. Commodity strategy, again, this one from oversold, but look at the volume that started to show up 3 or 4 weeks in a row here. Lots of volume building around the base. If this is going to start to kick, nice time to go look at it. Price Smart, a big move this week after being pretty much bombed out. I'd probably wait for a pullback and then try to find a better entry, but this is a nice thrust telling you there's interest showing up. Raytheon, lots of news in the defense industry right now with mergers and acquisitions. This chart didn't move enough for me. I think the scooter ranking was probably something that happened a while ago and that dropped off. And so now all of a sudden it started to kick. But it is right at 0. And I do think that there's something worth watching there with that whole space doing mergers. Smart Global Holdings, this is breaking its downtrend, starting to move to the upside. PPO just turning up. What's not to like here? Lots of volume hitting the stock. So that's an interesting chart shape. I think I have trouble buying it with a 20% move this week, but any sort of a pullback from here, and that might give you a nice place to look. Okay, silver miners, I think we know that that space been okay. Nuveen, Barclays TFI, municipal bond ETF, yeah, whatever. Not going to get enough upside on that. But again, the whole idea behind these is just to see the contrast between the two different investing styles and to see if there's any chart shapes you like. Here's XLE trying to build a base and kick up here from a scooter ranking. You can see when it did that before, this starts to move. And this chart, I mean, it doesn't look like much, but $60 to $75 in a couple of months is a pretty nice gain, 20%. So XOMA, this one's starting to build from a low base, turning back up. Really got to like that. And we'll just go to the last page quickly. U.S. Oil Fund, XLE again. And that was the XLE area. There's other things in there like solar. So that also helps that particular group. XOMA biotechnology, this base, trying to get going here. So again, hopefully I've shown you some different ways to use the scooter ranking. The idea isn't so much use Greg's ideas exactly, but try to build simple scans. You know, this one, it really only has one control line in here, and the other ones are just to keep junk out of the trade or out of the results, but setting up some simple guidelines for you to go through on the scooter. I do want to make one point here on the SPY, and I'm just going to actually click on one of these charts here. But one of the things I want to show you briefly is as the market has been trying to top out here, our PPO continues to wind sideways. And, you know, when it goes negative, that's just on a 60-minute chart, like this went negative briefly. But I think more importantly, if we just zoom back out here, what we want to watch for is if all of a sudden this starts to lose momentum and can't get back above 0. So over the next couple of weeks as we come through earnings, that's the thing I want to watch for. So thank you for taking the time to join me on Market Buzz. Market Buzz airs live on Wednesdays and Fridays at 10:30 a.m. Eastern, 7:30 Pacific time on StockCharts TV. Thanks again.